This roasted chicken recipe is so easy, even a man could do it. I really do mean that in the nicest way possible. Last weekend, my own husband, who had never roasted a chicken before, I was out, I wasn't gonna get home until later. I was like, I bought some chickens, they're coming. Can you just like turn to that page in the book and do the tandem roasted chicken for dinner? And he was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Never roasted a chicken before, lady. And I was like, yeah, it's all in the book, bro. You can do it. And when I came home, the chickens were roasting and they smelled amazing. And he was like, that recipe was really easy. You just like put the spices on them and put the chickens in the oven. I was like, exactly. That's exactly what you do. And then I didn't have to cook dinner. It was truly amazing. And we still have leftover chicken in the fridge. True story. Hey guys, it's Carla. I'm here again for another episode of That Sounds So Good, which is a book and also a video series. Today we're going to be talking about roast chickens. Not roast chicken, roast chickens. This is the tandem roasted chicken trick from the Day Drinking and Lazy Lunches chapter of the book. So why would you roast 2 chickens instead of 1? I will tell you. First of all, you want to have enough food to go around. So for my family of 4, we can take down an entire chicken and maybe someone's going to wish that they got an extra drumstick. Avoid that. The other reason is because roast chicken leftovers, always a great thing. Soups, quesadillas, stir fries, chicken salad. So you're covered in that regard as well. And if you're roasting 1 chicken, it doesn't take any longer. It doesn't change your equipment. It doesn't change the oven temperature or really any of the other ingredients to make a second bird. 2 birds for the price of 1. All right, so before I start roasting these chickens, I'm gonna make a very simple and easy spice rub. If you don't have the spices or the wherewithal to do this, just do the salt. So this is dried oregano. I'm gonna use 2 tablespoons of dried oregano. If you had fresh oregano, that would be lovely too. You could do some thyme sprigs, you could use dried rosemary. So just something that has some herbaceousness to it, that like nice woodsy flavor. And 1 teaspoon of cayenne. Cayenne's one of those chili peppers that's really like the hot, hot heat of chili. It doesn't give a ton of fruit or smokiness or a lot of other chili flavor, but it's going to give you heat, which is why I like it. And then very important is kosher salt. So I'm estimating about a teaspoon of salt per pound of chicken. In the book, it says 2 teaspoons, assuming your chickens are around 3 pounds. These chickens were a little bit closer to 4, so I'm just gonna throw an extra couple teaspoons in that spice mix. And now for the fun part, when we see if I can mix these spices together without overflowing the tiny bowl that I've chosen for the job. I guess I was inspired by like your sort of classic supermarket rotisserie flavors. So you can do this a day ahead. You can do this a few hours ahead. You could do this 2 days ahead and then just keep it refrigerated. And in fact, this bird came into my house yesterday and I decided to try this out by seasoning that chicken a day in advance. If you're going to season right before you go into the oven, it is also totally great and will be delicious. Other important thing about roasting whole chickens is make sure to season inside. This spice rub on the outside of the chicken is going to do a really great job of seasoning and making the skin delicious, but it's almost like a waterproof layer here, right? This is your wetsuit almost of the chicken, and not much is going to get through to the actual flesh or perfuming the actual meat of the chicken. So then you have to invert, make sure you get your spice rub inside. Also the backs, right? Because the thigh meat of the actual chicken, when you carve it, this entire piece is going to end up on your plate. So you have to make sure that they're seasoned back there. Okay, so inevitably some is going to fall off. Let's do the chicken press. All right, so both chickens are seasoned. One extra step that I took yesterday with the chicken that is pre-seasoned is I tied its little ankles together. So for this guy, maybe we'll just leave the legs akimbo and see if it really makes that big of a difference. One thing I am gonna do though is I'm gonna just tuck the wingtips behind the bird, which will push the breast up a little bit and make it a nice shape. Kind of like the chicken is reclining on the beach and putting its little hands behind its head. Just tuck those back. Ah, so relaxing. I preheated my oven to 425. I want it nice and hot and fast. The total cooking time is going to be around an hour, maybe a little bit less. And the last step before these guys go in there is just a drizzle of oil, which is going to kind of jumpstart the cooking. Fat conducts heat, so this is just a way to get that hot air of the oven making friends with the surfaces of the birds. Little drizzle drazzle for that guy. Once it gets hot, like all of its beautiful skin and fat is gonna render and you'll be in great shape. So this is really just like getting things going, and it's gonna ensure really nice browning. I'm not gonna roast on here. I've got the same size rimmed baking sheet with a cooling rack set inside of it, and that's just to elevate it a little bit so the drippings drip and hopefully the underside of the chicken gets nice and brown. If you have a roasting pan with a rack, you can absolutely use that. If you have a rimmed baking sheet but you don't have the cooling rack, don't sweat it at all. Just put them down directly on the surface. I don't have a roasting pan and this setup works for me. Alrighty, so these guys are ready for their time, their journey, the process through desert heat. All right, the one last step here is to add just enough water to cover the baking sheet, which is going to prevent the spices and drippings from burning as the heat and the drippings sort of hit that pan and get roasted. And that way you won't have a big smoky oven. All right, there's not much to do while the chickens are chickening. So I am going to just get a little side salad going. I'm going to be making the big batch vinaigrette from chapter 11, which is called Also on the Table. And it's filled with like different sauces and condiments. Like I have a creamy spicy sauce and a salsa verde and this big batch vinaigrette, which is my mom's recipe. And it's something that's just been on the kitchen counter in our house for my entire life. It's very easy and you can customize it to the vinegars and things that you have in your house. But we always make it in the Cuisinart because it's fast. You could totally use a blender. And if you don't have either of those things, a hand blender would work, as would just whisking. It's totally fine. Just whisk it together. All right, so I have one shallot. This makes, per the title, a big batch. And the nice thing about that is that you just always have a basic vinaigrette at all times. Don't have to make it when you're just having your like weeknight dinner. It just never goes bad. We leave it at room temperature all the time. Nothing has ever happened. All right, so I'm gonna give these just a rough chop to get them started. And then the next thing that goes in is some Dijon mustard. And my mom says healthy blob. So that feels healthy. How do we feel about the squeeze bottle versus the jar? I much prefer the jar. I'm gonna do a little thing. This is not good for your knife, but just punching a hole in the can so that it glugs in a better way. So anyway, what have you guys been up to? And seed. Okay, so then I need half a cup of red wine vinegar, something nice and bright and tart. This is my dad's vinegar that he makes in barrel in his basement with leftover red wine. And it's very sharp. Half a cup. And then I don't keep balsamic in the house for literally anything else. Balsamic has gotten such a bad name because a lot of the balsamic that is sold as balsamic isn't really truly delicious balsamic, but it adds kind of the sweetness and tartness to this dressing that is just a standard characteristic of my mom's dressing. That was 2 tablespoons. All right, I'm gonna season up the shallot. It might look like a lot of salt, but think about like that amount of salt is gonna have to season all of this liquid. So I'll probably even end up adding more. If you were doing this by hand, you would just like finely chop the shallot as the first step and then whisk in the mustard with the wet ingredients. So now the shallot is pretty finely chopped. I'm just gonna pour my oil vinegar mixture in there. It looks right. Kind of mauve, or like a warm brown. Frank's vinegar is no joke. And if we're lucky, I will pour the dressing into this bottle and it will be the right amount and I also won't spill any. Little trick so that the blade of the Cuisinart doesn't fall out and knock over your bottle. Underneath, you can just pull it down from the underside so it doesn't fall out. So just do that on the bottom. So it looks beautiful and emulsified right now. It will definitely, as it sits, it's gonna settle and re-separate. Just give it a shaky shake. So some people believe, including my sister Nina, that when you get down to the bottom and there's like all of the shallot bits that have settled and not been poured out, that is when you get the best salad. Just make sure you get to the bottom of the bottle to test that theory out. Okay. So that's our big batch vinaigrette. This is gonna be just a nice, bright, crunchy thing to have a salad on the side with the chickens. It smells really amazing, like a delicious chicken in here, and it's been just 50 minutes. So I think these guys are done. All right, so things that I can just observe empirically without having to take a temperature of anything. It smells amazing. It's a very like roasty, toasty oregano flavor. The browning is really beautiful. I am happy about the amount of liquid that is still on the tray. So the water that I poured in from the beginning has caught the drippings, and this is even kind of the beginning of a sauce that's happening on the bottom of the rimmed baking sheet. And as far as the difference between the one that was seasoned yesterday and Trust and today, interestingly enough, the browning on this chicken is like better, and that's the one that I did right before it went into the oven. I have no idea why. So we'll just figure that out. But the rendering of the skin on this one looks a little bit more like thinner. It's like sheeted out more. I'm sure they're both delicious. I'm looking for a temperature around 155 in the breast. So when you go in, you wanna just hit like the thickest part of the flesh, avoiding bones. So yeah, we're above. 163, right in the center. 162. So I'm a little bit above my target temperature. I'm not really worried about it. It's just a few degrees. 161, 162. In the breast, this is 100% safe and delicious and a great temperature to be at. And just for fun, I will take the thigh temperature as well. I'm looking for that meaty part in the back of the thigh, avoiding bone. And that is 166, so perfect. We pulled it at actually just a fantastic, wonderful moment. Okay, cool. I can't carve these while they're piping hot, so that is an illusion. You're never gonna have a roasted chicken that is like steaming hot on the plate, because the person carving it is just gonna like burn their fingers and all the delicious juices in the chicken will come running out if you do that. So you're just much better off letting it sit, let the juices redistribute, let the temperature come up. In that time, this crispy skin is gonna also soften. So that's another hoax that we've been fed our whole lives, that you can have a roasted chicken with crispy skin all the way through. As it sits, the steam is coming off of the flesh of the chicken and it's just kind of moisturizing the skin. So it's not gonna stay that like fresh out of the oven crisp, and that's okay. The fat is rendered, it is really deliciously seasoned, it's still gonna taste great. Okay, so I've got my chickens. They have been rested. They look lovely. And now it's time to carve. So I'm going to start with the chicken that was seasoned ahead. So the first cut is right here between the drumstick and the side of the breast. So right where the leg connects to the body. So I'm just using the tip of the knife to kind of bend this back and expose the thigh bone, which if you just pull back on the leg, it's gonna come out of the socket. And that way, when things are a little bit more opened up, it's gonna show you exactly like where the knife should go. So now I've got that drumstick and thigh and cutting through. So you shouldn't have to push down really hard. I'm not cutting through bone. I'm just figuring out where the joint is connected so that I can go right in between it. Okay. So in our family, I am a thigh and wing person. Not that into a drumstick, not that there's anything wrong with it, but that's good because one child and the spouse really love the drumstick. So exact same thing on this side, cutting between. All right, so now we've got both sides of the breast and both wings. I find it easiest to press down until I find the breastbone, which is mostly cartilage, so it has some give to it, and then position your knife over to one side of the breastbone. You don't have to go all the way through. You don't have to go super deep to start with, but you're just really making sure that your knife is in the right spot and that you're to the side of the breastbone instead of trying to cut through it. Right? So I'm just kind of tracing that line. And up here is where the wishbone is. So you're going to get stopped. So once you're at the bottom, you can kind of angle your knife. Instead of going straight down here, I'm angling it this way and still pulling across so that it's going to curve over the rib cage. And when you get up to the top, this is where like the wing is connecting into the breast. And so same thing, I'm just wiggling that wing around like I did the leg joint to figure out where to cut in between. The leg joint is like a really great name for a bar, I think. But they also serve fried chicken legs at the leg joint. So look, we have a boneless chicken breast with the wing attached, and that then you can divide in half. This is a pretty primo piece also. Something for everyone. All right, so same thing. I'm putting my knife over to one side of the breastbone. Now the second side, for whatever reason, is always a little bit wonkier. I think it's just because there's nothing on the other side. That's a nice little piece. A Scooby snack. All right, so if you had only roasted one chicken, you would be done now. You would obviously, and of course, save this carcass for making stock. Maybe you would cut some of the crispy chicken skin and add it to your platter because you love yourself. All right, so now I'm going to partially carve the second chicken just to make sure that we have the coverage that we need for the specific likes and dislikes of this family. Okay, dinner time for me. Beautiful, really just whatever lettuces looked good, some Treviso and some radicchios and some romaine, our big batch vinaigrette, which I just made so it's still emulsified. And one of the things that I love when I'm just doing like a casual plate is thinking about the way that the flavors of the different things are going to do when they get together. The vinaigrette flavors, when they mingle with the chicken juices and the chicken spices, with the cayenne and the oregano and like all of the chickeny bit, that's gonna make like this delicious other little sauce on the plate. So I'm very excited about that. Just some salt. If salad's not your thing, there's a whole chapter on vegetables in the book. Give it up for vegetables, I believe, is what I call that. I've been talking about 2 chickens all day and how it's like amazing when you have all of these people. And if like surprise guests show up, then you're covered and you didn't run out of chicken. And then if you didn't get surprise guests, then you would have leftovers and like you could do, and it's just me. It's like me eating here in my kitchen, but it's okay. People are coming later. All right, I'm gonna take the breast because I want the wing. And I'm gonna take a thigh. Oh my God, another amazing name for a restaurant, Thigh Guys. You've heard of Five Guys. This is Thigh Guys. Who's a thigh guy out there? Sound off. We have some delicious chicken juices, so. Other things I would serve this with would be like a little bit of sharp mustard. I would put hot sauce or the Calabrian chili paste on the plate, just a little something to like drag through. Leftover chicken I always put out with like sriracha and mayo or a lemony yogurt. So there's a lot of ways that you can continue to dress this, but I'm in a good place. All right. It's very juicy. It's perfectly cooked. When you drag your knife through to cut yourself a piece, the spices that were all over the skin are sort of pulled into the inside of the chicken. I think this is yesterday's seasoning. I got to trade in for today's so we can compare and contrast. That piece of thigh that I just had all of the flavors of the spice rub on it. It does not need any more salt. It's like really, really, really perfect. And let's see if today's chicken was just as good. Today's chicken being the chicken I seasoned today. Not a fair comparison because I started with dark meat, which is to me a more delicious part of the chicken, but I think I can taste that the spices that were sitting on the chicken from the day before did bring something to the table. Not that this is bad, but if you ever wondered, is it worth it to spice it ahead of time, or is the whole thing like a lie that we tell you just to get you to jump through hoops? It did make a difference. It's really good. And then the wing, of course, the flat is the superior part of the wing to the drumette. Everybody knows that. I'll tell you something, which is really wild to me. I think I had really good oregano. There's like a lemoniness that's coming from the dried oregano that is so, like, people pair lemon and oregano all the time, and now that I'm just tasting the oregano, I get that because I'm getting like a delicious lemony flavor from the oregano alone. A squeeze of lemon over this whole thing also be good. All right, let's have a bite of salad. With Carol's Big Batch vinaigrette. It's so wild. That flavor, I feel like I'm in my childhood home. I'm like at my parents' house when I taste that dressing. It is so wild. It's one of those, like, it has been with me my entire life and it tastes exactly, it tastes exactly like it does. It's so good and it's also so comforting. In conclusion, you guys have seen me slow roast a chicken. You guys have now seen me fast, high heat roast a chicken, and there are lots of ways to roast chickens. But if you take anything away from this video today, I hope that it will be that you should just roast two. 2 chickens is better than 1.